The content of this video, as well as the thoughts, views, and opinions expressed herein, belong to the presenter and do not necessarily reflect the views of Brigham Young University or the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Okay, welcome, brothers and sisters. How are you? Good. Okay, super. Enjoying Ed Week? It's marvelous. I picture the spirit world like this. Just everyone's going to classes, running over here and getting a class, running over here. How many of you have attended Education Week for a lot of years? You remember on campus they used to, sisters, what they used to do is that they would confiscate the men's restrooms and put it says sisters. They still do that. You see the men running across the campus. Great experience, Ed Week. Okay, now today's topic is Doctrines on Marriage. Love is a work of not art but heart, right? And most often when I teach this class, there's not a lot of attendance, and it makes me feel bad, not for me, but rather because sometimes people hesitate coming to marriage classes, and because some of the struggles they may be having, which is everybody, right, to some degree. So here's the rules. We're gonna have some fun with this today. Okay, I'm not here to spread guilt. Okay, and you cannot, if you're sitting next to your spouse, you cannot do this during the presentation. You can't do any of that. Okay. We say, Lord, is it I? We ask when we talk about some problems and difficulties. Okay, so let's begin on this great sacred journey of marriage and talking a little bit about it. One thing I do know is that, and you know this as well, is that can always in the process of marriage do a remake, in certain aspects, just remaking it and so forth. I'll tell you in preface about a remake. When I proposed to Lizzie, it was the worst proposal in the universe. It really was. In all honesty, it was not intended to be this way, but it became the worst proposal ever. So we're young. I don't know, we're both 21 or something like that. Living in Ogden. You familiar with Ogden? Washington Boulevard, the main road through Ogden. I don't know, it's 4 lanes and 6 lanes. It's just a lot of traffic. It's kind of winterish, so picture the not fresh snow, but the old snow on the sides of the dirty cars going by. And so I had made arrangements. I was going to buy Lizzie's ring that day, unbeknownst to her now, okay? And so I go to my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law, just an awesome woman. All the jokes you hear about mother-in-laws and put down and so forth, I cannot relate to, because my mother-in-law, Joy, she just championed me. She was so wonderful. I just love her. She's now passed, but she's just so cute. She used to just want to tell people just about my teaching, and she'd just praise me, and she'd get her words mixed up sometimes. And so she'd say, "This is my son." She'd introduce me. "This is my son-in-law, Jack," and she meant to say a lecturer for the church, but she'd say he's just the best lecturer in the church. He just lectures here, he lectures there, he just lectures all over. She was just absolutely wonderful. So I called Joy and say, "Joy, come with me to downtown Ogden." I can't remember the place. The jewelry store is still there. Anyway, some of you may know if you're from Ogden area. And so I say, "Come with me and help me pick out the ring." Well, she loves that, right? And so we come downtown. You remember long ago, there used to be like a ZCMI on Washington Boulevard. And so Lizzie was going to go into ZCMI. Meanwhile, I was going to run into the store, Farr's Jewelers in Ogden, still there. And so I was going to run in with Joy. I was going to show her the ring that I thought, I wanted to pick out and get her approval and so forth. So Lizzie goes into ZCMI. Joy and I run into the Farr's Jewelry, and I show her the ring. It's wonderful. I buy it, and I have a coat on. It's kind of wintertime. I put it in my pocket, my hip pocket right there. Go back outside. We rendezvous with Liz. And I'm just so nervous. I'm absolutely nervous because I'm going to pop the question that night. We're going to go to our favorite ice cream place. At that time, I thought it was so creative. We're going to get a banana split, give the ring to the waitress, right? She's going to put it on top of the banana split with a little cherry. And I was worried that Liz might eat it. All these things I'm worried about. And so I'm just nervous. I want this to be perfect. And so that's my plan for tonight. So there we're standing on Ogden Boulevard. Washington Boulevard, the main street of Ogden. Get into the car. She puts her arm around me and she puts it right on that coat where the box is. right? She had no clue what it was. When she touched that, I thought, oh no. And I just blurted out, oh no, you found out. I whip out the ring and right there on Washington Boulevard, cars going by, gas and, it fumes and people walking by. And I proposed to her, will you marry me? It was the worst. It was the worst ever. Okay. And I have died over that for 52 years now. We've been married almost 52 years. And so when it was coming on my 50th anniversary, I said, I'm going to remake this proposal. I'm going to make it right. And this is what happens in marriages and so forth. I just want to preface it. And so what I did is I went to a jewelry store in Bountiful, where we were living at the time. And I had this ring made, this ring made for her. It was just a beautiful ring. And I got the flowers and I set it all up. I was going to take her back to exactly the same place. And I did. We drove. She didn't know it was happening. Drove into Ogden, got on Washington Boulevard, walking down, came up to Farr's Jewelers, and I hit the knee in front of all the traffic going by and the fumes and everything. And I was able to tell her for the past 50 years what a gem, just a blessing she is in my life, and re-proposed to her, a remake, a remake. And the first time when I first proposed to her, it was so pathetic. I know the Spirit said to me, Jack, thou disgusteth me, But this time the Spirit said, way to go. So we're going to be talking about today some of those things, no matter where your marriage is or the situation, the remakes, okay? Those type of things we're going to be talking about, okay? Okay, look, this we should know, and marriages are not all the same. They're not equal. Now, sometimes we focus on where our marriage should be, and that's okay. But sometimes with disappointment, we look at where our marriage should be as opposed to the distance you have come. Not all marriages are equal. And I like to use as a scriptural background, a text. You remember the marriage of Jacob and Rachel and the marriage of Jacob and Leah? Do you recall? Jacob sees Rachel. He's absolutely in love with her. And of course, he has to provide a dowry to Laban, his father-in-law. And so that dowry is, you work for 7 years for me, and then you'll have the hand of Rachel. Do you remember that? And so it says of Jacob and Rachel, Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed unto him but a few days for the love he had to her. Do you understand? He just loved Rachel. Then you know the story, right? What happens on the wedding night? Dad pulls a switch on him, and he gets Leah. And because the tradition is the eldest should first be married, okay? And so he finds out about that. And then, of course, Laban uses him and says, you have to work another 7 years for Rachel. You know the story, right? And he does. And they are married. Now, notice this, verse 30. Those marriages between Jacob and Rachel, Jacob and Leah. Notice the differences in their marriages, okay? He went in also unto Rachel, and he loved also Rachel more than Leah, and served with him yet 7 other years. And so the point is this, brothers and sisters, this may be your marriage, or you may see marriages like that. There are some marriages that I call Jacob and Rachel marriages. They just seem to go wonderfully along with not a lot of conflict, not a lot of drama. They just grow and they're wonderful, and right? You may have such a marriage, or you may have sat at a distance and admired the type of marriages you've seen with a Jacob and a Rachel marriage. But the marriage with Leah they're always struggling. You understand? Leah's always trying to get Jacob's attention. And remember, this is a prophet you're talking about here, okay? And it says here, and she's blessed to have many children, and especially sons. And in the Middle Eastern culture, that is the best, to have sons as opposed to daughters. She conceived again and bare a son, and said, now this time will my husband be joined unto me, because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore was his name called Levi. And so you just find this kind of challenge of a Jacob and a Leah marriage. And eventually, as years go by, it kind of settles in, and Leah is accepted, but never as much as Rachel. Now, here's the point. Your marriage may be in the beginning or in the process more of a Jacob-Leah marriage, a little bit more drama. difficulties, just challenges, right? And then sometimes we conclude that there's something wrong with us. Our marriage is just, how can people have such, and we admire others and we look at where they're at and we look at where we're at, and sometimes we're disappointed. Can you relate to that to some degree? Okay, now, it's not that you settle for, if you have a Jacob-Leah marriage, it's just to consider where you're at and where you can continue. Because I'm sure Leah was just as a wonderful person, righteous as Rachel, and Jacob was righteous and good and so forth. It's just the variables that determine their types of marriage. That's what we want to talk about, and how to remake some of those things. Okay, so let's do this. Number one, why might you have some challenges in your marriage, some more than others? Because it's just simply this. Don't you love that picture? Because we are so different as male and female. You got to take that into consideration. We are not all the same. Okay, I know, men, I don't mean that to belittle us or sisters or to offend, but we are so absolutely different. Okay, which was easier for you to raise, girls or boys? Who says boys? Who says girls? Most often it's just boys. Yeah, I only had girls. Most often they say boys, because there's emotional gender differences. We're just wired this way. It's not a flaw. It's not a fault. We're just wired this way. With kids, what you see is what you get. With girls, I found my girls when they're growing up, they're just sharper than boys. I could say they could be behind closed doors causing commotion. I'd say, "What's going on in there?" And what would they say? "Nothing, Dad." Right? You say the boys, they're causing commotion. What's going on in there? And what you see is what you get with boys. They'll say, "Johnny threw the cat down the clothes chute. It was cool." Yeah. Right? That's just the way that they are. You can always tell when you go into boys' bedroom, because there's fruit flies hovering over the waste paper basket, and the hamsters trying to escape to cleaner air. It's just, I would find my daughters. Lizzie does this. It's just the genetic, just the gender emotional differences. Whenever Lizzie's irritated at me, I'm sure she did this when she was a teenager. When she thinks I'm doing stupid things, she goes to a little body language. And so did I'm sure she did this as a teenager. When she's irritated at me, she first of all, she clicks her tongue and releases air. She goes, "Oh." right? And then what does she do next? Rolls her eyes and then has the palsy. Right? That's just things that girls do, right? What do boys do when they're caught and they're in trouble? They go, "Huh? Huh?" Right? Okay. You girls are so expensive. You're so expensive. I have a theory. The Book of Marshall means nothing. When I've seen each of my children born, and they're in the labor room, and you sisters are amazing. And I watched Lizzie, and I'm amazed. And when my boys came out of the womb, I noticed their hands were just like this, little fists. It's kind of indicative of what boys are going to have to face in life. But when my daughters came out of the womb, their hands were just like this. Just large enough for an American Express card to fit right there. Look, the point is, and then girls, we'll talk more about this. They talk. They know how to talk. It's just we are different sometimes in the marriages because just the fact of just simply our gender emotional differences. Add to that, on top of that may influence the marriage that you have, is the baggage that you bring into your marriage, right? Oh my gosh, you cannot minimize this. Do you understand what I mean by baggage? Okay, your environment that you came out of, the experiences that you've had in life, whether they be good or whether not be so good, or that's the challenges or the things that determine whether you had strong self-esteem or weak self-esteem, all the things that happen to you, and many times those spill over. Does that make sense? So before we ever consider, geez, enviously, we don't have a Jacob and Rachel marriage, and they just seem to be happy and get along all the time and so forth. We have more of a Jacob and Leah type of thing. Take these things into consideration. They can be remade and you can have still a wonderful, wonderful marriage, but they may take a little bit more work in some cases. Does that make sense? We okay with that? And then we're going to talk about just some basics in this class on how to remake some things. Okay, you with that? With that, let's begin. Okay, so that's a lot of that picture. Whatever your marriage may be like, okay, whatever it may be like, okay, it can be through the atonement of Jesus Christ and through proper actions in life, according to the gospel and his teachings and the Spirit and so forth, it can be remade. Okay, let's talk about the anatomy of an argument. The anatomy of an argument. I bet you each of you argue, and we'll always use scriptures to base this in, and we'll use scriptures of your scriptural heroes. Okay, we're going to use Lehi and Sariah here. I mean, wonderful, wonderful people. You want to see them have a blowout argument? And then this is it, okay? And it'll teach us, I think it's there to teach us that number one, they're human, we say, and then how to avoid a blowout contention that really does significant damage, and the steps that lead to sometimes blowouts or the anatomy of an argument. The situation, what's the situation where Sariah, bless her heart, she's Mama Bear, and she just kind of loses it. What is it? The boys have been sent to Jerusalem, and they haven't come back. And modern day scholars say that probably the journey was up to 21-day round trip. And during that time, they're not coming back. And she kind of, bless her heart, and she's wonderful, but she kind of loses it. And notice how she dialogues with her husband. First of all, when it comes to contention, I love Elder Joe J. Christensen, what he says here. The reality. He says, occasionally we hear something like, why we have been married for 50 years and we have never had a difference of opinion. If that is literally the case, and one of the partners is overly dominated by the other, or as someone said, is a stranger to the truth. Any intelligent couple will have differences of opinion. Our challenge is to be sure that we know how to resolve them. That is part of the process of making it a good marriage better, okay? Right? One time after such a presentation, a man came up, he introduced me to his wife, and he said, we have been married for 45 years, and we've only had one argument. It's lasted for 45 years. I love that, the reality of that, okay? Part of it is learning to resolve, the remake, to resolve or to help to expedite in resolution to problems. Okay, here's the dialogue. Now look for the steps of an anatomy of an argument, okay? I bet you in many respects you argue this way. It came to pass that after we had come down into the wilderness unto our father, behold, he was filled with joy, and also my mother Sariah was exceedingly glad, for she truly had mourned because of us. Now, during the process of them being gone, this is the dialogue. She had supposed that we had perished in the wilderness, and she also had complained against my father, telling him that he was a visionary man, saying, behold, thou hast led us forth from the lands of our inheritance. My sons are no more, and we perish in the wilderness. And after this manner of language had my mother complained against my father. Okay, can you see the steps? Number one, supposition. Incorrect supposition and the problems that it leads to, conclusions that we sometimes come to based upon the information that we had, okay? So she thinks, the worst case scenario because of supposition, okay? Secondly, she complained against my father, okay? Complaining, you'll see it's criticism. She says, thou art a visionary man. When she says thou art a visionary man, how is she saying it? What is she really saying? You dreamer, right? It's not you're a prophet. It's critical and it's sarcastic, okay? Criticism and then the criticism, I call it ceaseless pin pricking. Do you know what ceaseless pin pricking is? My mother was a ceaseless pin pricker sometimes. And really it was my fault, or as a teenager, I didn't think it was. But it's like when I did something dumb as a teenager, then she told me all the wrong things I had done since I was born. You understand? You didn't take out the trash. You forgot to feed the dog. Your room looks like a disaster. You understand? It's one after another, after another, after another. Do you see her doing that? We've left the land of our inheritance. What is she saying in modern 21st century language? Because of you, Lehi, we have lost everything. My sons are no more. Modern language, Lehi, it really bugs me when you kill the kids. It just, number 3, and we perish in the wilderness because of you. You understand? We are going to die out here. So ceaseless pinpricking, criticism, and sarcasm. Okay? Do you see these elements in your arguments sometimes? If you do, join the rest of us, okay? Join a prophet and a prophet's wife. Okay, secondly, my sons are no more and we perish in the wilderness. So really quickly, just outline wrong suppositions, fault finding, ceaseless pinpricking, and sarcasm. We should say fault finding, sarcasm, ceaseless pinpricking, attacking character, right? Thou art, you prophet, you dreamer, so forth. The 5th step isn't here because it doesn't happen. And oftentimes it's retaliation. We get bludgeoned by all these different criticisms and comments and ceaseless pinpricking, and the person says, oh yeah, well, you're not so hot yourself. And then they send a barrage back, and then another barrage comes back and escalates, okay? Well, Lehi is going to teach us how not that to happen. Well, let's take a look at each one of these. A supposition. Supposition is just wrong information, false conclusion, okay? Here, like I said, we're just going to keep this kind of light, but we'll get into some serious stuff. But, this is tender, so we're going to, we just, a classic example video of supposition. Wrong conclusion. I understand. Wrong conclusion. Okay? Now, here's the rules, counsel and supposition. Don't believe everything you think. I was trying to explain to him about this certain situation. He just seemed to be out in space somewhere, not really listening, not really understanding. He just really doesn't care about me. I'm not important to him. He just doesn't value what I have to think, okay? Look, don't believe everything you think. Ask yourself, is what I'm thinking 100% true? If it isn't true. It isn't true. And then oftentimes supposition leads to the fear of impending doom, the worst case scenario. Does that make sense? He doesn't love me. He doesn't value what I have to say. He doesn't care. You understand? And that leads to that worst case scenarios, okay? Supposition. Let's talk about fault finding, criticism, ceaseless pinpricking, okay? This is a great, I love this. Do you remember Spencer Kennard? He used to be for the spoken word, wasn't it? Right? He used to be the voice for the Tabernacle Choir. And he says this, I think there's such wisdom here. It's so good. Marriages would be more successful if each person would try to make his partner happy rather than good. Making our spouses good is a great temptation. We don't live with anyone very long before we see their faults. We trip over their inefficiencies and sloppiness, suffer for their moments of selfishness. We're stung by outbursts of anger, things they left undone. It doesn't take a genius to see how they could improve our lives if they would only change. So we make our lists, create improvement programs, remind our partners frequently of their faults, oftentimes ceaseless pinpricking. Okay. Others may nag, but we gently suggest, we think, right? Okay. We see ourselves as virtuous all the while. After all, our efforts are only for their good. Then Brother Kennard says this, well, there is nothing that does less good in marriage than vowing to change the other. Marriage ought to be a sanctuary from a painful world, a place to soothe our feelings and gain the strength to run another day. It can't be if one partner is trying to remake the other. Then instead there is a discomfort, a feeling that home is a briar patch full of thorns where one does not quite measure up. Can you relate to this? Okay. He goes on to say, worse, the improvement programs we design for someone else rarely work. Growth is self-initiated. It is an inner striving to be more. We can't make someone kind or thoughtful. Fat people don't lose weight because someone else tells them to. We can no more mold someone than tell a flower when to bloom. We ought to give up the futile idea of making our partners good and concentrate on making them happy. That starts by accepting our helpmate faults and all. With unconditional love, it means noticing the thousands of good things our loved one does every day and offering praise for them. Boy, we need to underline that, noticing the thousands of good things that they do. No one lives with a perfect person, so let us not be surprised that we don't. For every change we'd make in our partners, they'd list a change they'd make in us. So when we feel the urge to make somebody good, we can start with ourselves. When we want to make somebody happy, we can look To our partners, ironically, if we make them happy, we'll go a long way towards making them good. All those in favor manifest. No opposed. Right? Okay. Rules governing fault finding. Is it your business? Is it our business to bring up? Sometimes it is, certainly, and sometimes it really isn't. It's to them to decide. Is it really necessary? Is it true? Is it kind? And you've heard this before, but it's worth repeating in this setting. This is Elder Christensen. At times, it's better to leave some things unsaid. As a newly wed, Lola Walters read in a magazine that in order to strengthen a marriage, a couple should have regular candid sharing sessions in which they would list any mannerism they found to be annoying. She wrote, we were to name 5 things we found annoying, and I started off. I told him that I didn't like the way he ate grapefruit. He peeled it. He ate it like an orange. Nobody else I knew ate grapefruit like that. Could a girl be expected to spend a lifetime and even eternity watching her husband eat grapefruit like an orange? After I finished with my 5, it was his turn to tell the things he disliked about me. He said, well, to tell you the truth, I can't think of anything I don't like about you. Gasp. I quickly turned my back because I didn't know how to explain the tears that had filled my eyes and were running down my face. Sister Walters concluded, whenever I hear of married couples being incompatible, I always wonder if they are suffering from what I now call the grapefruit syndrome. Yes, at times it's better to leave some things unsaid. Is it really my business? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Is it kind? Rules that govern fault finding. Okay. Sarcasm, attacking character. Boy, watch what happens when arguments escalate when you start attacking their character. You are so this, or why don't you ever, and those type of things. When you attack the person's character. Sarcasm. In the Greek, the word is sarcasmos. It means to strip the flesh. To strip the flesh. That's sometimes we think it's just in jest, but sometimes it really can really hurt. One time I was feeling so bad. I was just not doing very well in my esteem and in dealing with life and dealing with situations at home and so forth. And Lizzie, she didn't mean this to be sarcastic. She just came across something she thought it was fun. And so she comes to me and she shares this little story. She's just chuckling and she brings it to me. It's called a box of chocolates. And it goes like this. Sally was driving home from one of her business trips in northern Arizona when she saw an elderly Navajo woman walking on the side of the road. As the trip was a long and quiet one, she stopped the car and asked the Navajo woman if she would like a ride. With a silent nod of thanks, the woman got into the car. Resuming the journey, Sally tried in vain to make a bit of small talk with the Navajo woman. The old woman just sat silently, looking intently at everything she saw, studying every little detail until she noticed a white bag on the seat next to Sally. What in bag? Asked the old woman. Sally looked down at the white bag and said, it's a box of chocolates. I got it from my husband. The Navajo woman was silent for another moment or two. Then, speaking with the quiet wisdom of an elder, she said, good trade. To my fault, because where I was at emotionally, mentally, and thinking about what a pathetic thing I was, I just took that to her. To heart hurt, I thought she was talking about me, and of course, she wasn't. But just as a model, sarcasm can really sting and hurt, right? And so, the Apostle Paul says this when it comes to our. Now, this next point this will be sobering, but boy, to me, it's profound. Apostle Paul said, "Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth. That which is good to the use of edifying." Edifying means what? Building. When you say edification, what are we talking about? A building. It means to build. Communication is meant to build one another, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor, evil speaking, sarcasm, ceaseless pinpricking, be put away from you with all malice, with all malice. Now, listen to this statement. Does it impact you like it does me? Elder Packer said this. He talks about when you and I are talking to someone, it could be in teaching, it can be talking to someone, but if we do it with the Spirit of our Heavenly Father, then this is what happens. This is what we become. he says, I believe to the degree that you perform according to the challenges and charge that you have as a wife, as a husband, in your discussions, in your talkings and so forth. That's what we're talking about. The image of Christ does become engraven upon your countenance, and for all practical purposes, at that time, in that expression, and with that inspiration, you are he and he is you. You understand what he's saying? That I just find that I'm stunned. I'm in awe that under the Spirit, if I'm directed properly, and under the Spirit, I can say the same things that Jesus Christ would say if he were here. That's what he's saying. Does that make sense? See, there, that I can say just what he would say in that moment under that inspiration. That to me is just awe-inspiring. You feel the same way? I'm just speechless, right? Now, on the other hand, let's take a look at the story of Zeezrom and Amulek. Do you remember? Zeezrom is the slick lawyer, and he is trying to shake Alma and Amulek, the missionary companions, and so he confronts Amulek, this new convert, mission companion of Alma. Listen to the dialogue, and I'm going to take a little liberty with this verse of scripture, but I don't think it would be off. This is their dialogue. And this Zeezrom began to question Amulek, saying, will ye answer me a few questions which I shall ask you? Now Zeezrom was a man who was expert in the devices of the devil, that he might destroy that which was good. So he knows how the adversary works. He's under the influence, the spirit of the adversary. So may I suggest, I know it's Zeezrom speaking, but I'm going to take liberty on this. If he's expert in the devices of the adversary, and when it says, therefore I'm going to say the adversary. Therefore the adversary said unto Amulek, will ye answer the questions which I shall put unto you? Amulek said unto him, yea, if it be according to the Spirit of the Lord, which is in me, for I shall say nothing which is contrary to the Spirit of the Lord. Do you understand what he's saying? He's saying under the influence of the adversary, right? If I'm under the influence of the adversary in that moment, in that dialogue, then I am him and he is me. Does that make sense? I can say exactly the same words that the adversary would say if he were there. You with me? If we can do it under the Spirit of the Holy Ghost, then the opposite must be also. And the word sometimes can just absolutely strip the flesh, wound the person, and sometimes it's just very, very difficult to repair. Okay? Okay. Sarcasm, attacking character. Retaliation. Now notice there is no retaliation with Lehi, and I'm asking you, and I think this would be very basic to you, how to avoid a blowout. What does Lehi do to avoid it becoming just a barrage of harsh words and criticism and anger, returned by another barrage of harsh words, anger, and criticism, and back and forth and back and forth? Okay, this was the dialogue, once again, that Sariah said to him. He was a visionary man, saying, behold, thou hast led us forth from the lands of our inheritance. My sons are no more, and we perish in the wilderness. His response is this. And I asked you, what is he doing to prevent a blowout? It came to pass that my father spake unto her, saying, I know that I'm a visionary man, for if I had not seen the things of God in a vision, I should not have known the goodness of God, but had tarried at Jerusalem and had perished with my brethren. And behold, I have obtained the land of promise, in which I do rejoice. I know that the Lord will deliver my sons out of the hands of Laban, and bring them down again unto us in the wilderness. And after this manner of language did my father Lehi comfort my mother Sariah concerning us, while we journeyed in the wilderness up to the land of Jerusalem to obtain the records of the Jews. What did he do to prevent an absolute blowout, a retaliatory blowout? Okay, he validates her, right? Now, is he just simply saying, is he just simply agreed to avoid contention? Whatever you say, honey. Yeah, you're right. Fall on the sword. Yeah. No. He addresses every one of her issues. You see that? What are her issues? you're a visionary man. He says what? I am a visionary man. Now speaking as one led by the Spirit. And then thou hast led us forth the lands of our inheritance. Because of you, we've lost everything. I've obtained a land of promise in which things I do rejoice. You know, my sons are no more. I know, he says, the Lord will deliver my sons out of the hands of Laban and bring them down. He addresses every one of her issues. Now, is that important to you? In your contention, your difficulty, that every one of your issues are addressed, even though we may feel like you're wrong or whatever, but to address every one of their issues. Is that important to you? It is important. Many times, you know what I'm doing? You know what I'm doing when I'm getting all the accusation or the criticism? Do you do this? I'm thinking already how I'm going to respond to that, how I'm going to defend myself, rather than listening to what she is saying. Does that make sense? Oh my gosh, my wife would say, Jack, if there's one thing I changed in you, listen, listen, right? He addresses every one of her issues. And when her issues are addressed, she's able to, the retaliation isn't there. I know, brothers and sisters, this takes practice. It takes practice. This is the process of remake, right? Okay? Main cause of retaliation many times is not listening. That's what my wife says. Listen, Jack, just listen, okay? Here, now, I just got to lighten it up a little bit, okay? Don't take offense. Bob suddenly realized his wife had fallen off her horse, which was quite a relief to him, as an hour before he had thought he had gone deaf. Okay? Now, don't take offense to that, because, sisters, we're talking just a moment, your emotional makeup, here, you can just tell me right here. Watch how you answer this. Sisters, when you are in crisis, what do you most want to do? Say it real loud. Talk about it. You want to talk about it. Ladies, and this is just your inherent makeup. You will speak, psychologists say you'll speak from 10 to up to 15,000 words in a day more than a male. Brethren, when you are in crisis, what do you want to do? Pardon me? We want to fix it, or we want to go in the cave, or we want to hit something. Right? And if you don't understand that about your spouse, sometimes you can see that he's troubled and so forth. Honey, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's hurting? And he just wants to go in the cave. He just wants to think about it, analyze it, and then we misunderstand. We suppose that, oh, you don't want to talk to me. You don't want to share with me. Oh, you understand? And so we need to listen. This is just your genetic makeup. Look at this little child, little baby girl. Okay. Already, she's just hardwired. I just want to talk. See, that's just us. Okay, nothing wrong with us, not fault. But you want to share, you want to talk, and sometimes we just don't, males. We just want to fix it, right? We just go into action, and so we just need to learn to just remake a little bit different. Have you seen this? I think this is the next one. Let me see if. This is too funny. Can you relate to this? See if you can relate about listening, about wanting to, as you say, we're fix-its. The males many times don't listen. We just want to fix it. Just this would solve a lot of problems. This is so funny. So Lizzie's telling me, listen, you just don't hear me. You just don't hear me. So we went to. She said, I want to do some hearing tests. So we go to Costco to do the hearing test. The audiologist tells me that my range of hearing is fine on the higher and the lower. He said, at the range where you most are not hearing is at the range of like a female's voice. Isn't that something? No, I'm not making this up. I mean, this is, so I got hearing aids. She got hearing aids as well. Because hearing, listening, even if it was physiological and we're not hearing, the person may interpret it as, you really don't care about me. You know, that you're understanding, or even to make some changes to do that. So listening is really important, even if it's physiological. Morris, an 82-year-old man, went to the doctor to get a physical. A few days later, the doctor saw Morris walking down the street with a gorgeous young woman on his arm. A couple of days later, the doctor spoke to Morris and said, "You're really doing great, aren't you?" Morris replied, "Just doing what you said, Doc. Get a hot mama and be cheerful." Doctor said, "I didn't say that. I said, you've got a heart murmur, be careful." Okay, listen. Not addressing their issues many times causes a lot of contention. Not listening, and then self-talk. Do you know what self-talk is? I bet you every one of you do that, right? You've been in an argument, difficulty. What are you beginning to do? Have you really been hurt? You're really contentious and struggling with, what do? You replay it over and over in your mind. Oh, I can't believe she said that. I should have said this. And then we play it over and over again, right? The self-talk. And so this is Pickles. Come on, she's sitting in the car waiting for her husband. What's keeping him? That husband of mine is so inconsiderate. This is the last time I'm take him grocery shopping with me as she's waiting in the car by herself. I'm finished shopping, but he's nowhere to be found. I bet he's had someone he knows and they're having a gab fest somewhere. What's keeping him? This is just like Earl to forget all about me. I swear that man is getting more and more forgetful. Then Earl's back at home and his daughter says, hey, Dad, have you seen Mom? She went to the store a few hours ago. Right? And this idea of just the self-talk. Martin Luther King, a great counselor here that can apply. He talked about you may not prevent being victimized once, but you have the power over being victimized over and over and over again. What does that? Self-talk, right? You just play it over again, how you've been hurt. You play it over again. You play it over again, and the emotions just get worked up. Okay. Okay. How are we doing on time? Okay. James says this: if any man among you seem to be religious and bridle not his tongue, but deceiveth his own heart, this man's religion is vain. He just says, in essence, if we speak in a manner sometimes motivated by the adversary, he says, I don't care how religious you are, it's all in vain, right? And how we address and talk to one another. What I love so much about the Savior is that the Savior edified. He had a habit, and I think it's kind of cool, but he had a habit of some of his closest friends giving them endearing nicknames. Can you think of that? Edified me. I think the reason he did that is because it told them how he felt about them, right? Who are some that he gave endearing nicknames to? Peter. He called Peter what? The Rock. Called Peter the Rock. I think that's the first one there, isn't it? Whoops. Yeah. Okay. And begs the question, why did he call, and our guess is as good as anyone else, why do you think he called him the Rock? Solid, right? Solid. Immovable. I don't know, perhaps that was some reason, but it built him. How'd you like to be called the Rock? My daughter Elizabeth had dinner with her last night. Have you ever eaten at the Bombay House in Provo? Oh my gosh. Go to the Bombay House. It's just down on University. And it's owned by a man who was a student at BYU Hawaii as a young man for 4 years. And now he has this one Indian gentleman, has this wonderful business. Anyway, when Elizabeth received her patriarchal blessing when she was 13 years old, the patriarch, Roger Jones, said to her, thou art a rock and a lioness of the Lord. At the end, she said, why do you call me a rock? Right? Because Elizabeth, if you know Elizabeth, she's solid. She's solid in her testimony. Who else? Someone said, John, what? Wouldn't you love to be called the beloved by Jesus? You know, the beloved. Joseph F. Smith was able to give us the reason why he called John the beloved. Joseph F. Smith said he called John the beloved because John loved Jesus and he loved his fellow man. So how'd you like to be called the beloved? Just edify, just builds. Communication is to build the person. James and John, sons of thunder. What do you think? Why? I don't know ultimately, but I think when they taught the gospel, they sounded like thunder. It was just powerful. They were powerful ministers, powerful teachers. Please.
Christ was turned away in the city.
Yeah, in Samaria. Yeah, bring him down fire. Yeah. Philip, an Israelite without guile, he called the widow, no greater faith. He just built, no greater faith have I seen than this, right? He just built individuals. May our communications build, edify, strengthen one another. Here's just a simple thing I think is helpful in communication. Be careful not to use the I word or the you word, I should say. You understand? That's inflammatory many times. It causes, why aren't you this way? You are so, you never, why don't you ever use I words? I feel so bad when you, because it hurts me. I feel badly when you, rather than you, never, you. Does that make sense? Okay. These are basics. I have not, I feel badly about because, avoid you words, you never, you always, why don't you ever, you make me so. Okay. I'm not taught, you are so, I haven't taught you anything new today. These are just simple rules in the remakes, Okay. This one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind and reaching unto those things which are before. That's a great principle, right? That's a great principle. Hard sometimes, because when we are the victims, we feel like we're to forgive, we feel like we're left holding the bag. But remember that this is basic. The forgiveness is not only for the perpetrator, but it's also for us to be able to move on. Elder Holland says it so well. What happens in marriage too, and in other relationships we have, I can't tell you the number of couples I've counseled who, when they are deeply hurt or even just deeply stressed, reach further and further into the past to find yet a bigger brick to throw through the window pane of their marriage. When something is over and done with, when it has been repented of as fully as it can be repented of, when life has moved on as it should, and a lot of other wonderfully good things have happened since then, it's not right to go back and open up some ancient wound. Let people repent, let people grow, believe that people can change and improve. Is that faith? Yes. Is it hope? Yes. Is it charity? Yes. Above all, it is charity. If something is buried in the past, leave it buried. Don't keep going back with your little sand pail and beach shovel to dig it up. Wave it around and then throw it at someone saying, hey, do you remember this? Splat. Well, guess what? That is probably going to result in some ugly morsel being dug up out of your landfill with the reply, yeah, I remember it. Do you remember this? Splat. And everyone comes out of that exchange dirty, muddy, and unhappy and hurt. Let the past, leave it. This one thing, forgetting those things which are behind and reaching forth unto those things which are before. Be kind to one another, tender-hearted. You know what? In my patriarchal blessing, I was told, because I joined the church later, and Lizzie and I, we were married when I had my patriarchal blessing. And the last thing, Elder Carl Story was his name, Patriarch Carl Story. Didn't know him from anybody. Met him for 1 hour. And some of the things he said were so prophetic, so helpful to me. But one thing that after 50-something years of marriage, in my patriarchal blessing at the very end, it said, be kind and gentle to your wife. And boy, I've learned through some hard experiences that is really, really important, right? To be kind and gentle. Be kind to one another, tender-hearted. I love this. We'll end with this. We're just out of here at 12:05, right? Yep, 12:05. Got a couple minutes. Nurture one another. Two of my favorite stories here. You remember the Guidepost? Have you ever read the Guidepost magazine? A little Protestant magazine. Just tender stories. I love the Guidepost. This is how the Guidepost. I made a vow to myself on the drive down to the vacation beach. For 2 weeks, I would try to be a loving husband and father, totally loving, no ifs, ands, or buts. The idea had come to me as I listened to a commentator in my car's tape player. He was quoting a biblical passage about husbands being thoughtful of their wives. Then he went on to say, love is an act of will. A person can choose to love. To myself, I had to admit that I had been a selfish husband, that our love had been dulled by my own insensitivity, in petty ways, really, chiding Evelyn for her tardiness, insisting on the TV channel I wanted to watch, throwing out day-old newspapers that I knew Evelyn still wanted to read. Well, for 2 weeks, all that would change, and it did. Right from the moment I kissed Evelyn at the door and said, that new yellow sweater looks great on you. Oh, Tom, you noticed, she said, surprised and pleased, maybe a little perplexed. After the long drive, I wanted to sit and read. Evelyn suggested a walk on the beach. I started to refuse, but then I thought, Evelyn's been alone here with the kids all week, and now she wants to be alone with me. We walked on the beach while the children flew their kites. So it went 2 weeks of not calling the Wall Street investment firm where I am a director, a visit to the Shell Museum, though I usually hate museums, and I enjoyed it. Holding my tongue while Evelyn's getting ready made us late for a dinner date. Relaxed and happy, that's how the whole vacation passed. I made a new vow to keep on remembering to choose love. There was one thing that went wrong with my experiment, however. Evelyn and I still laugh about it today. On the last night at our cottage preparing for bed, Evelyn stared at me with the saddest expression. What's the matter? I asked her. Tom, she said in a voice filled with distress. Do you know something I don't? What do you mean? Well, that checkup I had several weeks ago, our doctor, did he tell you something about me? Tom, you've been so good to me. Am I dying? Sad. Sad. It took a moment for all of it to sink in. Then I burst out laughing. No, honey, I said, wrapping her in my arms. You're not dying. I'm just starting to live. Okay, be nurturing, tender nurturing. Don't nurture like this. Gravely ill, a man went to the doctor with his wife. After the examination, the physician motioned for the wife to meet him in the hallway. Your husband is very sick, the doctor said, but there are 3 things you can do to ensure his survival. First, fix him 3 healthful, delicious meals a day. Next, give him a stress-free environment and don't complain about anything. Finally, make passionate love to him every day. On the drive home, the husband asked, what did the doctor say? I'm sorry, she said, but you're not going to make it. Don't nurture that way. Nurture one another. Nurture one another. Okay, we're concluding. Neither give place to the devil. Let him that stole steal no more. Well, brothers and sisters, I haven't taught you anything new today. Some principles that can bring about remake, not to focus on others' marriages. They seem to be so Rachel, Jacob-ish, and ours is more Leah and Jacob. We all start at different levels, but we can fulfill the full measure of our marriage to what that capability is. And through the gospel of Jesus Christ and his principles and the teachings of the Savior and by the Holy Ghost, that can be magnificent, that many would be in awe of. God bless you. I'm grateful for the gospel, grateful for this principle of marriage. It will bring about you and me more than we could on our own because of that caring and assistance of a loving spouse, of which I testify and grateful. Have a good day. Enjoy yourself. Bye-bye.